All right, welcome back to another episode of the Semi-Related Podcast. I'm here with Chris Thomas, aka the Indie Trucker. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Jacob. Thanks for having me.
Chris, where are you calling in from? Where are you at right now?
Franklin, Virginia, here at a Love's Travel stop just off of Highway US 58. So heading down to Florida, just got loaded up this morning in Delaware, come down through the Bay Bridge Tunnel there and through around Chesapeake, and just got over here, stopped in time to jump on here with you.
Tell me a little bit about the studio you're in right now.
Yeah, so I'm in a 2000 Freightliner Classic XL. It's the old school truck. I got a You know, I've been in this truck since 2013, and so it's kind of a part of me at this point. I'm just all the time looking around, just amazed at how much time I've spent in here, because a lot of people don't even spend 10 years in one career, and here I've spent going on 11 years in one truck.
And do you know how many miles you've made in that truck?
I've made I've made north of 1 million on the truck myself. The truck overall has 2.4 million, probably going on 2.5 here this year. And as far as components, all the major components, of course, have been, they're remanned. Everything's pretty much brand new, except some of the paint and some of the inside components are still original.
And then the stickers. Do you want to give us a little background on your sticker collection in the cab too?
Yeah. So I'm not a show truck. I'm never going to be. So I wanted to mix it up a little bit in here. So I've got stickers from everywhere. I've got stickers from places I've been, stickers from places I've delivered, stickers from national parks, positive affirmations, travel stickers, basically anything. If it's got adhesive on it, I'll throw it on the truck somewhere.
So Chris, you
I haven't started on the outside yet.
Not yet. So do you want to tell us a little bit about who you're driving for and what kind of loads you haul?
Sure. So I pull a pneumatic hopper, was basically the best way. That's the legal definition, is a pneumatic hopper, a pneumatic tank, pneumatic trailer. And I haul dry bulk commodities, U.S. and Canada, for autumn transport. They're a small carrier based out of Woodbury, Minnesota, about 130, maybe a little bit more than that, owner operators, all owner operator fleet. They got hoppers, tanks, pneumatic hoppers, and then they also have end dumps. And I've been there since 2010. I left for a little bit in 2013 to go pull an RGN trailer, which I loved, but I really didn't love the rates that I was getting for that. So I come back to something that I knew that I could make a pretty good living at.
And then, Chris, we've kind of bounced around seeing each other across LinkedIn, the Lost Freight Discord, kind of through all these different channels that I think have now come to be known as this FreightX community. Could you kind of talk a little bit about your involvement with that and what you've enjoyed about it?
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of like I stumbled into it, right? Like a lot of the guys on there I already knew on X or Twitter. I've been on Twitter since like 2008 as a trucker. And, you know, uh, last year at the Mid America Truck Show, went with Gord as his plus one. So I had a media credential, which is absolutely ludicrous. And so I was kind of an imposter there, getting around to hang around with like Justin Martin from Freight Waves, and then Reed Lucelo, Losalo. Reed, you're going to tell me how to pronounce your name, because Dooner, does a different thing every time he says it.
Read, please
Anyway,
advise.
yeah, Reed, please advise. So that that was the first time he had the original please advise hat, which is like this seafoam green generic ball cap with a post-it note on it and some shipping tape, and it said please advise. And so, getting to hang out with them, Mike Lombard, we hung out the whole time. And, it was kind of like, didn't know what was formulating there at that time, but it really has kind of blown up over the last year, right? I think when I got into the Discord, it was less than 100 people, and now it's last count, it's over 1,000.
Wow.
And, it's something new all the time. Like, and just, it's kind of been a wild ride to be along with that, and just to get to know so many people in such a short time and learn a lot about, I've been trucking for 18 years, but I didn't know a lot about the backside, the brokerages or freight forwarding or all these different segments of the supply chain. I just kind of got a free education.
Yeah, and then tell me a little bit about the growth. Like you mentioned, you've been on X as a trucker. Have you used the Indie Trucker handle that full time, by the way? Is that
Yeah. So actually, yeah, I've been indie trucker since 2008, and I pretty much went out and tried to clamp it down on every service possible. If you find indie trucker on Xbox, you're going to be playing with my kid, right? Because I don't play Xbox anymore. But yeah, it's been indie trucker the whole time. I get some slack about that from people like, oh, you gotta be have your own MC and your own DOT number if you're going to be an indie, if you're real indie. That was the plan at one time. And I'm not saying that it would never fit into the plan, but I'm pretty happy where I'm at and doing what I do, and happy with the numbers and the lifestyle that I've got. So, but yeah, I've been indie trucker since that. And it was just kind of I was into indie art, indie music at the time, and I was like, man, why not indie trucker? Independent. So.
Yeah. So, kind of tell me what it's been like your experience with the community. I think you said since 2008. Kind of how has it grown? What have the changes been like? And not just with the Discord and everything, but just through the years, the different audience that kind of has come and gone, I guess.
Yeah, so it's kind of like trucking and social media has, it's like anything else. It's like the Roman Empire. There's a rise and fall of so many people. Like I've seen so many truckers getting blow up big on YouTube, like or blow up big and be at the truck shows, and then next thing you know, they're completely out of trucking. And it's kind of weird to be on the content creation side of that, where I'm actually starting to make my own stuff while I truck the whole time and watching people come and go. And I feel like there's some guys sticking around in it, but it just goes to show you what a challenge trucking can be. It's a challenging industry. I mean, it's an easy enough job, but there's the mental fatigue, you know, being isolated all the time, all these things. So with X and with Twitter formerly, it really seems like trucking really blew up over the last, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years. And there's a lot of old accounts on there that I've been following for years that we've kind of interacted back and forwards. Gord's obviously is banned from there right now until who knows when. But Gord was on there several accounts. I've known him for 6 years on there. I follow like Jamie Hagan, Mac Lovin. I follow Q Modi. Quincy there. Uh, it's like we're all individuals, but we have this place that we can gather together and kind of talk about ideas, talk about the same stuff. And we're all a little bit different too, right? So it's kind of nice. And I think COVID really, you know, really isolated everybody even more, right? Because all of a sudden you couldn't go into the truck stops, you couldn't sit down at the driver's table and have the conversation, and whatever your opinion is on the kind of conversations we used to have. There was a lot of BS being kicked around as water cooler talk and stuff at a truck stop, but a lot of that stuff went. So I think it's kind of nice to have the FreightX community and have all these different social platforms starting to draw in a new community of drivers and showing that trucking is still as alive as it always has been.
Yeah, and you mentioned something in there that you've gotten to learn a lot of these different things, like you mentioned from brokers or freight forwarders or whoever it may be. Kind of talk to what you think your role is as part of this community and getting to be almost this voice of the driver, right? You get to kind of tell them the realities of the road because you hear a lot of people talking about drivers on their behalf, but kind of tell me what your thoughts are on being that voice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just one voice, right? I mean, there's millions of people doing this job every day, and everybody's a little bit different and has different opinions, and that's the diversity of trucking, right? The diversity of ideas and backgrounds that's in this industry. From people who retired from jobs to people who are never worked anything like this. There's a whole spectrum of people in this industry, and it's kind of nice. I think it's a good way to be a positive voice out there in the trucking industry from behind the seat. I think that's needed in this industry. There's a lot of negativity online about trucking. There's just all kinds of negativity all day about your job, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a job. It's just like anything else. There's other jobs, and sometimes it's probably easy to forget what it was like before being behind the wheel. There were still challenges at any kind of workplace. So, get on here and cut up about the workplace a little bit and, make yourself feel a little bit better. And I think it's positive for everybody to get on here and kind of have this banter back and forth. We can throw mud at each other and stuff, but I think at the end of the day, we're all truck drivers out here. We're all working in the logistics industry and supply chain trying to move different pieces. And, this kind of conversations that we have kind of breaks down the walls. So we all know that everybody, you're just a human. I'm just a human. The person that you're walking to on the phone, we're all going to the same goal. We all have dreams. We all have life aspirations. And it's good for the trucking community to feel like that they're part of something and not just a cog in the machine being abused.
Yeah, and I think something that's been kind of a hot topic lately has been those broker carrier relationships, and that's probably been a hot topic for a while. Could you kind of talk to what it's been like, getting to know the other side of these things, like you mentioned, meeting more brokers, meeting more freight forwarders, whoever it may be, and kind of seeing the other side of the coin, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, my broker exposure is pretty limited compared to a lot of operators out here. I've only had to work with a broker a few times in my life, but you know, just like anything else, I mean, if you got to build relationships, and if you're a bad individual and you're not getting business, I mean, maybe you should look in the mirror. What, no matter your position, right? But it's made it a lot easier, the idea of trying to get out there and do any kind of growth thing in this industry, because that's what it is. It's relationship building, which is something that truckers don't get to do a whole lot of. I mean, we build relationships with our customers, a lot of times the shipper customers, and that shows up because when you go to a shipper or receiver, you're the person who's going to be kind of the picture of that broker, the picture of that shipper or the carrier in that person's mind. So it's always important for us to be on top of our game when we go somewhere. But at the same time, this way, with the online society we have now, you just really can't be an asshole, right? You can't be a jerk. If you are, somebody's going to leave a negative rating. Maybe one or two ain't going to hurt you, but if you start getting negative ratings all the time, it's going to show up and it's really going to affect your business.
Yeah, and then I noticed you're wearing your truck parking club shirt as well. What's kind of been your experience? You've been on Freight Waves, you've been on podcasts, you're launching your own podcast, which we can get into later. But what's been your relationship, kind of meeting all these different vendors too, and getting to understand the solutions that are kind of coming out, and what's your relationship with someone like truck parking, for example?
Yeah, I wish I could say I was making all kinds of advertising dollars, but it's just basically I get a free hoodie,
We'll
right?
talk to Evan
No,
about that.
but the guys at truckparkingclub.com are great. Hunter and Evan and Adam and everybody over there. They're just really great people. I love what they do. That Hunter's a genius on making these videos. He's just off the cuff. You could tell he's an auctioneer because he's just really fast, right, with it. I don't know if you knew he was an auctioneer, but he's an auctioneer. I think he's a serial entrepreneur too, right? And then Evan is just a really cool guy. Uh, got to hang out with him and Charles Gracie down in Chattanooga back after Thanksgiving, and it was just a phenomenal time there, getting to kind of get out of the truck and go do some of these things that all you office people get to go enjoy every week when you're home. Because I mean, I'm out here on a 3.5 week grog right now. The best I'm going to get is maybe some Bojangles here in a little bit. But I like it. And I'm only going to probably talk about brands that are nice, right? Because I don't have a foot in the game. So like Truck Parking Club, I was kind of leery about it, to be honest, at first, because to me I was like, oh man, they're going in here and taking all of our free parking and starting to put a price tag on it. But the fact is truckers have been doing it to themselves here for the last 10 years. Truckers, a lot of times it's human nature to just shop for a bargain, right? So you're loading up at the Walmart, you're loading up your groceries because that's what you can afford. Then you're pulling in the truck stop and you're not paying for parking, you're not paying for a shower, you're not paying for fuel, you're not going in and eating at the restaurant. And it's fine, But then you got the guys who are dumping their trash and they're dumping their chicken wings out on the parking lot floor, and they're abusing somebody else's business. So to me, Truck Parking Club solves a solution because it gives us more truck parking. And also, I like getting on here and representing them because of that reason. And we're going. I think the longer we're out here, we're going to see truck parking becoming a premium to pay everywhere. It's something that was free for a long time. Unfortunately, a lot of truckers have abused that, and we're all paying the piper now.
Yeah, and then something you mentioned in there just kind of did some quick math in my head. You said you're on week 3 of this stint, right?
No, this is week 2 starting right now. So I left out January the 2nd. I'll be back home the
Okay.
24th.
So, how are the holidays for you? That's something that's always been interesting and obviously a big topic of conversation. Just kind of talk about how it was out on the road or if you made it back home too.
Yeah, well, I always usually take Christmas off and New Year's, and this time I got COVID. Yay me! So I was feeling kind of down in the dumps and sick there one day, and the next day it was still going on, and we were supposed to go out, and my mother-in-law's got going through chemo right now, and my wife's like, "Hey, you need to take this home test because we don't want to give her anything." And I was like, all right. I took it lit up like a firework, so I had it and had to basically watch TV for 4 days, right? So, but it was a good time at home. It was a good time to be home and with the family and stuff. Hang out with some friends after that. We had a pretty good time. That's kind of the benefit of owning a truck. A lot of times owner operators, depending, there's definitely a whole spectrum there too of what owner operator pay looks like. There's some guys that barely make more than company drivers, and there's some guys that are in the top 5%. I'm in the top 9% at least. I don't know. That's what I always say, right? The 9% of companies who expect growth during a recession. That's totally me, right? I'm going to make money either way. But that's because I'm just going to go out here and do whatever it takes. I'm going to take those loads that no one else wants to do. I'm going to go to the places that no one else wants to go to.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, how long you've been operating, kind of tell me how that's changed throughout the years. And like you mentioned, that idea of the indie trucker, right? Kind of going out on your own. You gave pulling some different types of loads a try. What are some of your learnings, and what would you kind of tell other maybe new truckers to kind of shorten their learning curve?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a shorten in your learning curve at all. It's kind of a lifelong learning path. You're always going to be learning something out here behind the wheel. Um, you know, and that's the thing. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, just like anything else. You're going to get paid more the longer you stay somewhere. Once if you're reliable, if you're on time, if you're doing your maintenance right, if you're staying on top of it, you're going to have opportunity. If you become the guy who they have to worry about breaking down or saying no all the time, you're not going to make as much money. And that's really what it boils down to is you've got a reputation. You've got to be a professional all the time out here. You can goof around a little bit. I like goofing around some too, but when I'm going down the road, it's all business, right? So that's what I would say is just, it's a profession. It's not just a job. It's a lifestyle, for over the road. I mean, you could be a home everyday driver, and that's fine. But when you're over the road, just anytime you're behind the wheel, that's the most important job. And just keep learning. And once you think you know everything, you probably need to take a step back and say, you don't, because you really don't know everything. You can always learn a new lesson
And
out here.
then how do you take that mindset and apply it to something like a delivery or a pickup whenever you are having these one-on-one interactions with, the customer, and like you mentioned, representing, whether it be a broker or carrier, but either way, representing. What does that mean to you, and kind of how do you live that out?
Yeah. So, I mean, being a professional on the job site, show up, you know, if it's a construction site or a mine or something like that, wear some pants, wear some high vis, get you a hard hat, look the part. Don't get out in your flip flops and your shorts and walk across a job site because nobody's going to take you serious. There's OSHA violations, there's MSHA, there's a whole world out there of regulations, violations that some safety managers are ready to come over there and kick you off the job site. So that's one thing. It's all about it's a lot about parents. And if you're just dropping and hooking and driving down the highway, whatever you want to do. If it's just a driving day, you do you. But when you're at the customer, you kind of need to go in there. You need to act the part. You need to be a professional. You're there. You're there to do a job. So in my world, just going in and knowing my equipment, knowing what I'm talking about, and kind of knowing their equipment, like I have a pretty good grasp on different kinds of silos and air systems, and that's just stuff that I've learned over the years that I use, and hopefully they like it. If they don't, well, I mean, I tried, right?
Yeah, and then let's kind of explore that a little further. You mentioned you run a really specific type of trailer. You put some good content out there on LinkedIn, for example, when I think you were hauling some malt the other day. Kind of talk about the learning curve of that and understanding the science behind what you're hauling and bringing all of this, like you said, that constant learning and improvement and being a professional into all of the jobs you do.
Yeah, I mean, any job that you do, you're going to have a lot of patience, and especially in trucking. You just have to have a lot of patience to sit there and take your time. And with what malt's a perfect example of something that you don't rush. You try to speed through unloading malt, you're going to damage the grain. Next thing you know, they're going to be looking for a different carrier because you messed up their product, or they're going to file a claim on your load. So it's a lot of patience. It's a lot of paying attention to what you're doing, paying attention to your surroundings. It's really something that goes every day in trucking. I think any type of trailer that you do, you're going to have the same kind of skill set from trucking, from driving, is applicable to your next skill set, whether it's tarping a load or securement, or if you're hauling high value freight, you can secure that in your trailer, knowing how to position pallets, stuff like that. So it's always learning, and it's always being open to ideas and realizing that I don't know everything, but when I know something, I need to speak up and tell the customer, hey, you know, maybe we should try it this way. What do you think? And see what they want
And
to do.
I think this kind of circles back to that community aspect, right? Is there, someone you look to or someone who's helped you, or are you ever at truck stops and just kind of ask around, like who do you try to learn from, and where do you kind of take that inspiration to continue to advance the practice?
Yeah, I mean, I always look up to the old guys that's been out here forever. My friend Keith, uh, I've been friends with him for over a decade now, and I talk to him a couple of times a month. And he's been driving since the 1970s. He's a wealth of knowledge on how to own and operate a truck. He's owned multiple trucks. You know, he's kind of, to me, he's kind of like the father figure of trucking as far as the trucking goes. I can look up to him and call out and say, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? And he's successful. I mean, he's got a nice ride there, and a nice life that he's built for himself. And he's getting close to retirement, and it's kind of on to me, like I'm the next generation. I'm getting there. I've been in this for 18 years, and I'm looking for probably another 20 year in here at least. So I look at those old guys, though, the old guys that's been doing the job and then just do it every day, and they're kind of quiet about it, but they know what they're doing. I think that's the biggest value you can find out here, is getting somebody who's been doing this job for just decades and learning as much as you can, because the fundamentals and the basics of trucking is still there. It's one load, it's one driver and one truck
Yeah,
from
and
point to
then I
point.
think you point out that you're in a really interesting phase of your career. And how are you kind of taking that upon yourself to pay it forward? Do you see part of this content creation as an opportunity to do that, or through the X community? Kind of what are some ways you see passing that knowledge on to the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely getting it, like I say, just being positive, and not only on X. Just don't be fake about it and get on here and be nice. Just be nice everywhere. That's kind of my motto. I don't snap at people too much. Probably not as much as I did in my 20s, right? I think we're all a little bit short fused when we get out here, maybe in our younger years. But just be kind. Be nice to the people you run into. Be nice to them. It doesn't cost you anything, and it can make you never know what they're going through during the day, and uh, and just the same thing on X. Just try to be polite, and that's kind of how I was raised. Just be polite with people. Now, some people might need to be told to pipe down a bit every now and then, but I think that's what you need in the world. You need a little bit of that. You don't need somebody else on here screaming at you about your parking job or screaming at you because you're parked on the fuel island for too long. Although I wish you wouldn't. I wish they would park in the parking spot instead of fuel islands, but it kind of
And
is what it is
then
these
are
days.
you kind of seeing a next generation of trucking come up? Are you seeing some younger guys out there on the road, or what has your experience been with that as well?
Yeah, there's definitely a slew of younger drivers out here now, and the trucking's always got new people coming in and new people going. I was driving by a trucking school this weekend up there in Pennsylvania. I was Delaware. I was coming by, and on a Sunday, they're out there practicing maneuvers in a CDL school. So there's always new blood coming into the industry or new meat to be ground up, however you want to look at it. And I think it's really hard for those guys when they first get out here. You're going through school, then you get into a company, and I would say most companies are a good 75 to 80% of the time. It feels like a good experience. But like when I was first out here, day shift was great, and often the problems would come in at night shift. You get a different dispatcher come in, and they would take and shift up your whole schedule, or want you to do stuff in the middle of the night when you should be sleeping. Be like, hey, you're here, go over here and check this, or go over here and walk over and check that. So, and it's got better. I mean, there's from what I've been able to tell, but it's really hard on those guys. That you get into a job where all of a sudden you're pretty much, even though you got your hours of service, you're available to be called and bugged all the time. And a lot of companies do that, and unfortunately, a lot of them do that still yet. And those guys, some of them will stick around, some of them will work through it, and that's what I always tell. The first year or two of trucking is it's just a real tough time of it. And I guess just like any job, the whole paying your dues is a real thing. But I think there's some good companies out there right now, and I think that social media is kind of giving people an avenue to air their grievances and an opportunity for the companies to sit there and look, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing it this way, or maybe we shouldn't be doing it that way. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see a little bit of give and give on both sides, not only the company but the driver. Driver understanding the functions of their job better, and the companies also not forcing those drivers to go beyond
Yeah, and
what
I
they can
kind of want
safely
to
do.
zoom in a little bit. I don't know what your experience is with this, but tell me a little bit more about what it's been like for you, working with dispatch or your connection to your company. Kind of tell me how that's evolved over the years too.
Yeah, I mean, so I think with experience, you kind of learn your ground a lot, but you don't have to be so. I'm pretty flexible and easygoing. Like, I think dispatch rarely has a problem with me. I'd be surprised if they have a single complaint about me at
They'll have
this
to be our
point.
next guest then.
But it's yeah, we'll get them on there. That'd be interesting. I'd love to get a dispatcher on the show or on any show. If you've noticed that, there's not been a whole lot of truck dispatchers getting on the shows. That's because they are busy all the time. They're probably about like teaching. They're putting fires out all day. So a lot of times I have to sit back and remember that, like, I've got my problems, but they've got 100 other drivers' problems that they're dealing with at any given moment. So I'm not just the only guy that's calling in there. And that's the hard thing about trucking, right? Is when you have a problem, you want to solve it. You want somebody to help you solve it right now, and that's all dispatch deals with is problems all day long. So it's a good thing for drivers to sit there and remember that it's not a personal vendetta if they don't call you
Mhm.
back. They're probably just
Yeah,
busy
and
as crap.
kind of talk to that too, because I see that in almost any job. It's easy when you're the one on the ground that's like, I need help right now. We need to fix this, but there's always these competing priorities that need to be considered as well. But What are some tips you might give to a younger driver to kind of help with that relationship as well? You know, we've talked about these broker relationships, we talked about customer relationships. What about internally within your own company?
Yeah, you just do you do what you can. You make sure you communicate the issue, communicate the problem over, send a Qualcomm message or whatever it is. Make sure that they know, and that's really all you can do at that point. Um, and that's that. Unfortunately, that there's probably a lot of churn in the industry that's created by that waiting. So I would say the drivers just you have to learn a lot of patience. You have to just realize that you push send, you just sit back and relax, and hopefully your pay structure is something that accommodates you for all that waiting time. And that would be the biggest fix right there. Is how many times a person's worried about getting that truck down the road, and now they have some kind of issue that they're not getting paid for. And that's where a lot of the friction comes from, right? There's all of a sudden they're sitting there doing something that they weren't trained for, like conflict resolution with the customer. And that's just something that comes with time and experience
And
out here a
then
lot of
I want to kind of
times.
zoom out from there. What is your experience and what have you found most helpful with understanding the broader market? You know, you see all these commentators talking about huge market trends, but whenever you're on ground zero dealing with individual loads, specific lanes, that high level view kind of changes and may seem a little out of touch or something. So, kind of tell me what your thoughts are on keeping up with commentary, but also working with it on the day to day.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm just probably like everybody else out here. I watch freight waves every day and see what the market's doing. But at the same time, I'm out here every day, dealing with it. And while there's not a driver shortage, there's definitely a quality driver shortage. People who do this job day in, day out. There's not enough of us that can do this every day and not have an accident or something like that. And it just feels like at this point, there's so many wrecks and so many accidents out here that and obviously the insurance industry says the same thing that, there, there's going to have to be something that comes about changes this, because I don't see how insurance companies can keep raising this rates up on everybody. At some point, somebody's going to have to say enough is enough, and tell these bad actors who get out here and have no business in being hauling freight. Like, the enforcement needs to be stepped up either at the federal level or by the insurance companies. And I think they're doing it. Like, whether the government does it or not, insurance companies are putting policies into place that makes it a little bit harder for these questionable carriers to be out here playing the game. And right now, we just have an overcapacity. We have people that shouldn't be in the industry right now. Probably they got in when the rates were really high. They have no idea how to run a business. But during COVID, there was just a lot of money there, and pretty much the rules just kind of dropped off the face of the map. And so it's going to be some time before that stuff weeds itself out. And then really, that's just how low can you go? I mean, we can we can go pretty low, but unfortunately, that's kind of the trade off, right? Is you get all these people in there, and then everybody's fighting for the same dollar. So to me, it can go a lot lower, but it's not going to be lower for a lot long. Just costs are too high for anybody
Yeah,
to
and then
sustain
you
that.
mentioned safety rates, a lot of different things there that kind of touch on this topic of autonomous trucks. And I want to get your thoughts as a driver and kind of see where you see that technology going.
I mean, it seems like it's coming. I'd seen something this morning that Aurora thinks it's going to be here in 3 years, right? They're ready to start commercializing this within the next 3 years. Um, you know, I guess dispatch is going to be looking there, and the truck's going to be saying, "Hey, I'm broke down on the side of the road. Send help." It's just going to be a computer automated message, because that's really where we've been for a while. Is trucks have been broke down just a lot. There's a lot of breakdowns out here, more than it seems like there used to be, and maybe it's just because there's more trucks. But I'd like to think that there's a place for the driver there in the future, and I think there will be. I think there's a lot of situations that it's going to be some time before full autonomous trucks can go from point A to point B completely without some kind of human assistance. And it might be just as simple as what I said, getting out, cleaning off of a sensor, making sure that the reefer is fueled up, making sure the truck is fueled up, obviously, with the bigger corporations, it might be more advantageous, I would think, from point A to point B. But it's coming, and I think it will be a part of the industry. But I don't think it's going to put any truckers out
And
of jobs
then
anytime soon.
we have a question we ask all of our guests kind of towards the end of the show, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this. We always ask, what is your bold prediction for the future of trucking?
Well, it's going to keep changing. It always changes. Once you think it's done changing, that's when it's going to change the most. That's the truth about it. Trucking is just it's not going away. If anything, there's going to be more. There's going to be more trucks. There's going to be more truck stops. There's going to be more warehouses, and it just with population growth that's projected in this country, you're just going to keep seeing more and more get hauled around the country. So that's what I think. I think that it's still a great industry to be in. Any kind of logistics is a great industry to be in. It's a fun industry to be in. And just
I want
looking forward to the
give
future.
a shout out to everyone who makes it fun. Like, for example, this whole interview, I've just been distracted by the big hat on your head. And every time I see the Please Advise, get a kick out of that. So then, another shout out to the truck parking club guys like Hunter who keep it interesting and always find a way to tie it back to the industry. So it's great to see what people like that are doing. And like you said, keeping it fun.
Yeah. And thanks for having me, Dave. You can catch me anywhere on the socials at Indie Trucker. Also follow along our new podcast with Eric the Red Beer and Fat Man King Spud at driveaxle.show. We are first episode just dropped yesterday, and we are everywhere. We're on all the formats.
Well, Chris, thank you for the time. Thank you for your insights, and look forward to having you back again soon.
All right. Thanks, Jacob. Have a good one. Bye.